was on here.
Again, right.
Yeah.
No, don't do that.
What?
So I just muted everybody. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight for our virtual happy hour on April 3rd. I'm going to go over a couple things before we get started. Everybody say hi to my lovely bride right there, Katie.
Hi, Katie.
Thank you for joining. Couple things before we turn the time over to Dr. Linda McCormick. Just so you're aware, if you go to our website, pgfit.com, we've restructured our homepage. So all of the most up-to-date and current news is on our homepage. Remember, if you click on login, that's going to redirect you to our membership site. You'll put in your username, which is your email address, and then you'll put in your password, which you should have received an email with your password. That was one that was either auto-generated or one that was one that you created. But you're going to log into the membership site. Once you've logged in, can everybody see my screen?
No.
Oh, okay. So can you see my screen now?
Yep, now we can see you.
All right, so let's try that again. So if you go to pgfit.com, you click on login. That'll redirect you to the membership site. You'll put in your email address and then your password and then click login. Okay, and then that'll take you to the membership site where we have the tabs at the top if you're looking on your tablet or your phone. Each week we're updating this information so there are different downloads. A couple of the documents that I want to go over here in just a second. The most current ones are going to be the 17 easy, healthy meals, the grocery shopping tour guide, and then the restaurant cheat sheet. So make sure you download those because you'll only have access to them until Sunday night. We've also got the 5 fundamentals. We've got our programs. We've also got all the videos that we put together. So for example, all of the streaming videos that we're doing, they're housed right here on the membership site. So if you wanted to play this from your phone, if you have like an Apple TV, Chromecast, Roku, or even an adapter, you can actually just stream it right to your TV, and then you can do the workouts just right in your own living room. We've also got all of the other resources here. So please make sure you take some time to look through that. Remember, we're playing PG Fit Bingo. So there are different ways that you can connect 5 in a row. And if you connect 5 in a row, then you'll get a free PEMF session. And you can black out the whole thing so you can get up to 5 PEMF sessions, or you can get the PNOE VO2 max testing done once we reopen. So with that being said, what I want to do is go ahead and turn the time over to Mike McCormick. So Mike is a senior attorney and partner of McCormick and Bold. Mike has actually been, I think we've known Mike now for almost a decade. Can you believe that, Mike?
It's scary, isn't it?
But in fact, Linda was one of our first clients when I started PG Fit. So Mike has been a great friend of ours. He's been a mentor, and he's one of my business partners in Jeunesse Global. So I'm gonna turn the time over to Mike, and then he can introduce his lovely bride. So Mike, the time is yours.
And Linda weighed 323 pounds when we first met Michael, and you can see what kind of an effect he's had on her. What she can do to a bikini's doggone criminal these days. But we're so glad that we can call Michael not just a partner but a friend. And you should be delighted that he's the guy that runs PG Fit, because I've represented a number of fitness folks all across the country over the years, and Michael's is by far the most sophisticated. He is by far the most forward thinking. He utilizes technology in ways that none of the other fitness folks that I know do, and he communicates. I mean, the whole secret to any business's success is communication, and Michael does an outstanding job of it. So I hope you really cherish your partnership with Michael, because he does an amazing job. The other partnership that I cherished is the one to my right, my bride Orama. And Linda's smarter than the average bear, and as you can tell, she's a profoundly great judge of character by the husband she selected. She knows she's on the right track if she selects this guy, right? Linda and I have been married for a really long time. for straight out of the cradle, I suppose. But she's an outstanding scientist. She's very, very smart. She stays up on all sorts of pharmaceutical things in addition to the science of the current drugs and the current challenges and hurdles we all meet. She and I actually got to be part of the Jeunesse business a few years back, and it went very, very well for us. So if Michael talks to you about that, I can tell you that as a practicing attorney for 35 years, I actually redirected some of my own professional pursuits in order to take advantage of some of the things that go along with that business. So this particular time is particularly relevant because it's helping our immune system, and the health and wellness products and those kinds of things are really super, super important. But without further ado, I want to turn it over to Linda. Linda has been studying everything that comes her way relative to the coronavirus. She also seeks it out through channels that you and I don't have access to, PubMed and some of the other publications that she gets to tap into by virtue of being a PhD in neuroscience. She's the global director of medical affairs for a large pharmaceutical company. And as the global director of medical affairs, she has a very vast territory. And until we start exploring outer space a little bit more, she's got the whole planet in her territory. So she's very familiar with where this virus began, what its origins are, and what kinds of things we could reasonably expect, though nobody really knows exactly what to expect. I'll fill you in and tell you all about it. So without further ado, I give you the one, the only, the legendary, the famous, the infamous, the McCormick, Linda McCormick. Take it away.
Oh my gosh. It's always a treat to get an introduction from Mike. Oh my gosh. So I didn't, when I'm talking about the coronavirus, it's not really my, my field, but because I'm in the industry, in the pharmaceutical industry, you just can't help but getting really inundated with all the information. And of course, it's a big deal to our whole world, the pharmaceutical world, because we're on, not our company personally, but the companies that we, kind of are in touch with all the time are on the cutting edge of what's going on. And I thought what would be interesting to you maybe is not to go through all the drugs that are in development. There's like 30 different candidates of drugs that are actually being really seriously looked at. And this isn't new. I mean, people have been studying coronaviruses for many years. So it's not, some people have spent their whole career doing it. So that's all they do. They're virologists. And the one thing they might study is coronaviruses. So I'm not an expert in that. My expertise is actually the kidney. So, but I do have a science background, and I know a lot about research and about drug development. And it does take a long time to bring a drug off the court on something. Anyway, so it does take a long time usually to bring a drug to market. And what they've done now is loosen some of the strict guidelines that it's going to take in order to get these drugs out. So they're testing them on really sick people already, and seeing some preliminary results. So, but I thought it might be kind of interesting to tell you where this all started. You probably heard something about China and bats, and so no one ate a bat, so and got the virus or anything like that. So that's not a thing. But what we do know is that these animals, there's many animals that carry disease, and they just carry it, they never get sick. And, the bat, for example, there's a certain type of bat, they found a virus that's very genetically similar to the Corona-19 virus. Is it exactly the same? We're not quite sure. Viruses mutate all the time. So, but they're really pretty sure it was started in this bat. It's kind of interesting to me because what happened is when the habitat actually of this bat is getting stressed, or they're getting eliminated, and so bats become really stressed and they can't handle that virus anymore. They can't handle that disease anymore. So they're starting to shed the disease, the virus. They shed it, which means they become contagious. And so who's catching it from them? Other animals, actually. So you've heard about the wet market and the Wuhan wet market. So when bats have come there and just infected other stressed out animals in that market where they're all caged and everything. And this is probably isn't the last time we'll see a virus like this, because the more we decrease the natural habitat of animals, the more we stress them out, the more they're going to probably spread the disease that they are normally able to handle. So, for example, the bats, they get a really high fever, a really high body temperature when they go out and forage for food. And this virus actually stays and lives, still can house itself or use the bat as a host, because they've developed and mutated so they can withstand these high temperatures. So that's why, you know, a human will get this really high temperature, a high fever, and it doesn't really help. I mean, it takes a long time before, you know, they kind of get past the sickness, because fever is supposed to kill viruses, and it doesn't in this one. So it's really interesting, I think, what we can learn from, you know, what humans have done to habitat of different animals that are going to, you know, going to affect the way we our world. And the world's going to change after this. You always see Chinese or Asians with masks. I mean, I travel a lot all over the world, and anywhere I go, I mean, I don't care if you're in Italy and you see, you know, Asians in Italy or Germany or, you know, wherever, in London, everyone's got masks on. In New York, whatever. But it's because they have experience with SARS, some of these other viruses, and they're very, very conscientious of getting it. And we'll probably start wearing masks and stuff a lot more now in the future, right? We're going to be a little bit less, I think, willing to hug and kiss each other, you know? So my family is Italian. They live in northern Italy. We go there all the time. And I mean, they're really into kissing each other's cheeks and the whole 9 yards. And believe me, that's going to be a really hard thing for Italians not to do anymore. So, but just thinking about a virus, you know, a virus, it's not a living organism. So it's a protein molecule. It's a molecule of DNA. And this one in particular, it's covered by a fat layer, a lipid fat layer. And it's this lipid layer, because it's got that lipid layer around it, it's absorbed very easily by the nose, the nasal or the mouth mucosa, and it kind of changes the genetic code, and it can live in there, and that's how we get it, right? And then once it gets inside your body, you become the host, and it becomes aggressive and it multiplies. And so it's really, since it's not really living and it's a protein, it's not killed, but it kind of decays over time. So it's kind of an object that decays over time. But you can't get it by just touching a surface. You won't get it. It doesn't go through your hands. But it will go into your mouth and nose. So that's why it's so important to wash your hands and not touch your face. That's the whole thing, is don't touch your face, and be really careful with that. It's actually very fragile. And the only thing that's really protecting it is that lipid layer that's surrounding it. And that's why, you know, soap or detergent is really the best remedy, because it's those soap suds that really cut, you know, they cut the fat. And that's why you have to really wash your hands for 20 seconds, because you need to really work up a lather, get all around and rinse it off, and really break that fat layer around the protein and expose that protein and kill it. So that's what's really, really important. And heat melts fat too. So that's why washing, mosquitoes. Sorry. That's why, you know, washing your clothes, washing things in really, you know, at least 77-degree water is important. And that even makes soap suds more, you know, when we have hot water. And alcohol also dissolves fat. If it's over 65% alcohol, that will dissolve the fat. And so, but you know, there's no bactericidal thing. So any of the antibacterial things are not going to do anything to kill the virus. So And we know you've heard probably that it lives 24 hours on cardboard, I think, and 42 hours on metal, and then even longer on plastic. I think it's 72 hours or something. So it's just really important that we have to be very hygienic. You know, we have to be very conscientious of that. Even if we start using the mask and we're starting to put it on our face, you know, we don't touch our face and just, you know, that's the worry too with the masks. You know, that, gosh darn this mosquito. Mosquitoes are so bad. Like watching this mosquito biting me. So, and of course UV light. So if you could, you know, clean our phones and everything in the UV light, or the masks that they have to reuse, they're using UV light, you know. And, you know, alcohol from, you know, like vodka is not going to work because it's not enough alcohol. It's only 40%. So you can't really use that to clean your hands. But anyway, Listerine does have 65% alcohol. So Listerine is, it could work if you run out of hand sanitizer. And you really should wash your hands, but then moisturize them too, because it could get in the cracks. If we get our hands really, really dry and they get all crackly, you know, then you're exposing your raw skin to the virus, right? So then it could get in there. And so also I cut my nails. Cut your nails real short, because you don't want, you know, the virus can live under those nails too. So those are just some kind of tips, and those are actually from Johns Hopkins. So Johns Hopkins University has been really on the forefront of keeping everyone informed of what's going on. And so, you know, as far as the drugs that are being developed, I think, you know, you've all heard about the anti-malaria drugs. There was you know, I think it was in France where they first kind of discovered that, I'm sure they did it in China too, but they took patients and they put them either on, there was only a few patients, like 24 patients, and either they put them on the, you know, on the malaria drug or not. And they found out that 6 days later, I think there was only 25% of them tested positive if they had been on the malaria drug, but 90% tested positive if they had not been on the malaria drug. So does that tell you that it's going to work all the time and everybody? No, it doesn't. We still have to do the trials. And I think you hear like the scientists go, no, we don't know if it works yet. We don't know, because we as scientists are so used to like waiting for all the data to come in to say it works, right? We want to know, was it done in a controlled clinical trial where this many people had it, this many didn't. We did, it's big enough to be powered statistically to tell us whether it works or not. No, we haven't done that because, you know, we just haven't done that yet. But they are starting to use those kinds of drugs in really sick patients and anecdotally seeing results. And they're also starting a bunch of other trials. There's rheumatoid arthritis drugs that are already on the market. Those drugs that are already on the market that we know the toxicity, we don't really know the dose, but we could probably pretty easily figure out the dose. That's the other thing you do. First, you have to find out if it's safe. We already know they're safe because they're already on the market. Then you have to find out the dose. And then you have to find out, you know, if it would work in healthy people. We probably won't go that route. We'll probably go right to the really sick people. And they already have, right? So there's a couple of drug companies, Regeneron, that has a rheumatoid arthritis drug. The reason why you would want a rheumatoid arthritis drug is because rheumatoid arthritis is an over action of the immune system, right? So what happens when the patients get really sick and their lungs start to fail and they start to get full, their immune system really kicks into overdrive, but it can cause something called it's just organ failure. All the organs start to fail. And so this kind of prevents that end stage of that disease. So it keeps the organs going until the lungs can get clear. And then, so that's promising. And then there's a couple of antivirals that are really promising. I think Gilead has a really promising antiviral. But they're all just starting. They're all just starting to, you know, get tested. We probably will have a drug that will work before we'll have a vaccine. Vaccines take a little bit longer. The vaccines, they're saying like, you know, 12 to 18 months, and that's being very positive, very positive. So I would say more like 18 months, but then, you know, we'll see. I know the Mayo Clinic just came out with today that they have already acquired blood from recovered individuals and taken that, and they're starting to develop a test so you can tell whether or not you've been that you have immunities to the drug, which will be really important, right? To say, I've been exposed, I've developed immunities, and I'm good, so that'll be nice to know too. But remember, testing, if you test, there's like this big argument, should we just test everybody? Well, you could test, if we had enough tests, perfect world, you could test everybody. But if I'm negative today and I don't still socially distance from other people that I know aren't positive, then I could get it tomorrow. Like I could be exposed. So what do we test ourselves we're still going to have to distance. And symptoms are really the most expeditious ways to test those with symptoms. One symptom, even if you just have the cough, it's a reason to get tested.
What are a few of the symptoms, honey? Well,
the fever, the cough are the two big ones. That's the two big ones. So yeah, but
we've heard some things about ibuprofen, because everybody uses ibuprofen to knock down fevers. And I've heard Dr. Fauci talk on different shows about it. Can you tell the folks on the call what the ibuprofen, what's the real deal when it comes to ibuprofen or Advil or Aleve or that kind of thing?
Right. So those are the anti-inflammatories, and a lot of people take them for fever, right? If you have a fever, you might take a couple of Advil or some Aleve or whatever. And so what they found in these hospitals, that a lot of the people that are coming in are on anti-inflammatories and they're dying. Does that mean that the anti-inflammatories are associated and causal of a risk of dying? No, it doesn't. We don't know that yet. We just know that we're just really already sick and had fevers and come into the hospital and are already on it. Like we probably all would be if we went there, right? But we don't know. We don't know. So it's really still the jury's still out on that. And the recommendation is just to not take them. And if you have pain, take acetaminophen, which is Tylenol.
Since we're having happy hour tonight, there are some consequences with taking acetaminophen versus taking ibuprofen, right?
Yeah, when you're drinking, you don't take Tylenol. It's really bad. Don't ever take Tylenol and drinking, because it's really, really bad for your liver. So yeah, if you're in pain, take either the alcohol or the Tylenol, but not both. So.
But you can take the alcohol and the Advil. I can personally attest to that.
No, don't take any Advil right now. So don't do that.
What you really need if you're in pain is to go to that electromagnetic field thing that Michael's got over in his joint, and that is thebomb.com.
There's also this whole question about masks and whether or not you should wear a mask. So we're just hearing all kinds. At first it was like, if it's not going to protect you from the virus, right? So why should you wear a mask? If you're sick, wear a mask. But they really do want to save the masks and the personal protection equipment for healthcare workers. So they just don't want there to be a big run on the masks, which there already is. You already can't hardly find a mask. But what we do know is that now we know that you can be asymptomatic and still be shedding the virus and still be contagious, right? So that's a better reason for wearing the mask and not getting other people sick, because we don't know who's carrying the virus. So that's the thing. Wearing a mask, the microns of the virus are smaller than they're small enough to get through the mask. So if someone totally coughed on you and you were wearing a mask, you might get sick anyway. So it doesn't really protect you 100% from getting sick. And what they don't want people to do is wear a mask and then feel like they can hang out and be not 6 feet apart and not socially distant. You know what I mean? So you have to still socially distance, even though you're wearing a mask.
I was riding my bike in Bridgeland today, and a male and female, both wearing masks, peeled their masks off in order to lip lock. Is that safe? It honestly happened. I'm not kidding.
I don't know. But anyway, now they're saying you really should wear a scarf or something that's just as good as a mask, as the mask, not the fancy masks that the healthcare workers. but you can wear just a little, just a scarf or whatever. It's going to protect somewhat from getting sick. Just stay away from people. That's the biggest. Socially distancing is still the best way. So I don't know. Can't think of anything else to say about it.
Why don't we open it up for some questions?
Yeah,
You guys have any questions?
I could tell you all the different drug companies that are doing the drugs and vaccines, and there's a ton. It's and new ones coming out every day, and also different universities are doing it too. So I got a call from a guy at Northwestern and near Chicago, and he has a really cool product that he's been trying to get it approved for a while, and it looks like it could be really, really good. But my company it's not our capabilities, so we can do it, but we do own a company that it is the capability. So he went to the company we own, which has monoclonal antibody techniques, and he's going to try to, see, it's still early, they're all early, well, not all of them, some of them are being tested in humans and stuff. So
I got a question for you, and Michael, maybe while I ask this question, she gives her answer. Figure out if you want to open this up for questions. We're happy to answer any questions that she has knowledge of. She's already confessed her limitations, which I frankly think she overstated. But having said that, what's the likelihood that what length of time can we realistically expect this problem to continue, at least in some form? And it's the kind of thing like the flu that'll resurface during flu season and that kind of thing. We can see it kind of come back again 2 or 3 times down the road.
Well, I think it just depends on how the public behaves. If we do what we're supposed to do, we socially distance and we exercise prudence and good judgment, and don't, already they showed on the news today a whole group of people playing soccer together. We're not going to be over it anytime soon if people don't stop doing stuff like that, right? So it just depends on how people behave.
There are some really good examples nationwide of that, by the way. Kentucky and Tennessee are adjacent to one another, and the Kentucky governor went out immediately and did stay-home orders and that kind of thing. And the spike in the cases in Kentucky is much flatter than the spike in Tennessee. They just issued a stay-at-home order in Tennessee way more recently, and so you're likely to see, and you are already seeing, a climb in the cases in Tennessee that's much steeper than the climb in cases that you see in Kentucky. And that's there was a really good video that the residents or citizens of Italy put out. That it was like 10 Italians who were interviewed on Zoom or on some other social media, kind of like what we're on tonight. And they talked about what they experienced. And of course, a lot of it was subtitles since most of them just spoke Italian. And they said, we didn't take this seriously enough. You guys need to take this seriously. If you take it seriously, you're going to be okay. But we didn't. Don't do what we did. It was really a powerful video. And if you look at the mortality rate, it's hard to judge mortality rates because the denominator of mortality rates is how many people have been exposed to the virus. I don't really know that since not everybody's been tested. But in Italy, their mortality rate is like 10% versus in South Korea, where the mortality rate is much lower now. In South Korea, of course, they tested tremendously more, way more testing in South Korea. Certainly, testing per capita in South Korea is tremendously greater than Italy, and frankly, way better than the United States. We're not doing a very good job on testing per capita.
Okay, honey.
And so, long story short is that if you can get testing done, great. If you can social distance, it's been proven to work. And so there you have it. And
so we do have some questions. So is there a serology test or titers can be detected yet? That's what I was talking about that Mayo's working on. And I think very soon we will have that. There's a couple other universities and companies that they're working on tests to see if you have the antibodies. And am I concerned about MRSA based on overuse of hand sanitizer? Hand sanitizer is alcohol. So I don't think so. I do think some people do overdo the whole hand sanitizer thing. Soap and water is just fine. But when we come out of the grocery store, well, I don't go to the grocery store that much, but if, you know, when I get in my car or anything, I wipe the whole, I have hand sanitizer and I have, you know, sanitizer wipes in the car to wipe everything down, wipe my hands. That's the only time I really do use it. But you know, anything that you overdo is probably not a good thing, but it's alcohol. So,
She cracks a pretty mean in the McCormick household. I don't have any skin left. How many times she's telling me to wash my hands?
but I do think we do have to not overdo the you know, some of our behaviors. But the most important thing is just to, right now, is to stay home and try not to get out, right, as much as possible. And I'll tell you, this is really just kind of sad, but I do work with, I'm working on this really cool artificial intelligence project. And what artificial intelligence does is that it feeds the computer data and trains the computer with data, and then you're able to predict what's going to happen in the future. So by all this data that you have, it's kind of hard to explain. But anyway, the company that I'm working with to do it is in Bergamo in Italy, and that's the epicenter of all the bad stuff going on. And so this guy, he owns like a 7-person company, and he's got 2 of his coworkers who have lost a parent to the COVID-19, and his mother-in-law is sick with it. I mean, it's just so rampant there. And they had a really big soccer match in February that everybody went to. I mean, they pull in a ton of people at a soccer match in Europe. And that's what they're thinking, that kind of is what it did. But wow, I mean, every time I talk to him every day, it's just awful what's going on over there. And I just keep looking at Italy with my family, and I don't want to be there. I don't want us to get to that level. And we can shorten that. We really can change those predictions. I mean, if you just go by predictions, it's so scary. And that's why they're asking us to do these things so we can change that curve, you know? So.
Linda, are you okay if we open it up to questions now?
Yeah, sure.
So if you have a question, go ahead and unmute yourself. But Jay asked in the chat, so the virus is not a living organism, but then they say it lives on surfaces for XXX time.
Mm-hmm. It does. It does. It exists on a surface. So, you know, I could have COVID-19 protein on my, it's not alive. It's just, it's on here. The way that it becomes viable and scary is if I get it on my hands and get it on my face or and it's got to get in my body somehow, right? So that's when it starts to, there's this whole genetic thing that happens. It's a little mutating that goes on. It starts to incorporate my DNA into itself, and then it uses me as a host and just, you know, starts to replicate. But that's why it's not just sitting there living and you're going to touch it and you're going to get it by touching it. You have to maybe you eat food. Maybe it's on something and you with your fingers, and you'd be amazed how many times you touch your face. You don't even realize how many times. I heard a Rice professor say that they did a study and you touch your face 20 times an hour. I don't touch my face 20 times an hour. I know I don't.
I touch your face 20 times an hour.
That's so weird. So anyway, yeah.
So can I ask another question, follow up on that, is that I heard that when not bacteria, when this protein gets in you, that it goes into your lungs, and that what makes it kind of severe is that it has some sharp edges, and it grabs onto your edges of your cells and kind of rips them up, I guess.
It's got a spike. It's got a spike that, and that's what some of the drugs are targeting. They're targeting that spike. It's so cool. They're targeting just damaging the spike. Because then it wouldn't be able to attach, right? And it wouldn't be able to harm your lungs. And it just prevents your lungs from clearing. So we always develop mucus, right? That's part of your, but it's the ability to clear the mucus that matters. And that's why people with lung disorders that already have decreased function of the lungs. The lungs aren't able to clear mucus. They're not able to function. They're not able to, exchange oxygen into the tissues like they should. So people that smoke, or people that vape, or people that have a lung condition or issue are going to have a much harder time with this, but yes, you're very right. It does have a spike. Yeah.
Hey, Linda, some of the people are talking about how, or some of the news stories are saying, well, you're really kind of invincible if you're a young person. You're going to get sick, but you can overcome it. But the elderly people are the ones who are really in danger. And I know even in our own family, we've got a young upstart Mitchell who's like, whatever, let it go. I'm going to be just fine. Could you describe why the young people ought to be careful too?
Yeah, because you could be carrying it. You can spread it to me. And I'm creeping into that age group. So yeah, no, and young people have gotten sick, and there have been young people that have died. So we don't know enough about it to say young people are immune at all. So
Jerry,
The United States numbers are actually coming out lower.
hey, Jerry, did you have a question?
I did. What's the thoughts on takeout food and transmission through that media?
If you, in some of the hot spots, they've stopped takeout food, right? So are we sure that where they're preparing that food, that they are wearing masks and that they are, being careful? I don't know. I think if you wipe it all down and you're really careful, I think you're okay. But I don't know. We don't know yet, So, and if you look at New York, you can't get takeout food anymore. And some of these hot spots. So I think if we really want to stop it and change the curve, we probably ought to stop the takeout food.
Linda, on a related question, what kind of precautions should you take relative to going to the grocery store?
I would avoid the grocery store. I prefer to get it delivered if you can. And then I wipe everything down and bring it in the house. Bring the box, or don't bring the, I just wear gloves when I get it, and, wipe everything down and throw the gloves and everything away. But Mike goes to the grocery store. So I haven't been to the grocery store in a long time. So he says that,
Well, caution to the wind, baby. That's me.
You should wear gloves. You should wear gloves, obviously, and, wipe everything down in your cart, and just like you would anywhere else you would go.
And
right?
when you get home with your groceries?
When I get home when I wipe everything down. So I wipe the bag of broccoli with a wipe. I wipe all the, everything down. Now, you don't wash your vegetables and fruit with soap. That's not cool to do. Just rinse them off with water, even use a brush, but you got to clean the brush afterwards, right? So you don't want to ingest soap. It's not good to do. So you don't wash your vegetables and fruits with soap.
Hey, Tim, do you have a question?
Just a comment. I did go to the grocery store and I saw people wearing gloves, and I thought that was really smart. But then the woman pulled out her phone and pushed a few numbers and then put it to her face.
Yeah.
So we had this mental break of, I'm wearing gloves. I'm totally fine. Although she physically touched the phone with her gloved hand and then put the phone surface that was just touched by her hand with the glove to her face.
Yes.
And I was like, I can't help. Humanity is gone. I have no idea what to do.
You're really right. That's a big deal. The phone cleanliness is a huge deal, and we all do it, and we do it by habit. I reached out and shook a guy's hand the other day. I know it. I did it by habit. What a moron. As I reached out and he reached out, we both shook hands and we both looked at each other. What did we just do? That was so stupid.
Yeah.
But sometimes you do that. You gotta kind of
Linda.
Yeah. Right.
Linda, I've got a question for you. So you're suggesting wearing the gloves when you're at the grocery store, but yet do we know how long the virus will last on latex? We know how long it lasts on metal. We know how long it lasts on plastic. Isn't plastic and latex pretty close to each other? And is that really in our best interest to use the gloves, or are we better off just using our hands and then just washing our hands?
You could do that, but if you wear the gloves, you got to throw them away, right?
Well, exactly. And there's a way to take them off correctly.
Way to take them off, right? You peel them off, and then you don't want to touch anything with that. And when you take it off, you're going to have to, you have to be careful not to touch the outside of the glove when you take it off,
Right.
It's practice. So
so that's my question. Are we really better off using the gloves, or are we better off just using our hands?
I think it's okay to use the gloves if you properly put them on and take them off, I think people are trying to reuse things and stuff, which isn't good, right? But washing your hands is just as good. So yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Definitely.
Does anybody else have any questions?
I have one question. Can you briefly explain why it takes 12 to 18 months to get a vaccine from where we are now to where someone's sticking a needle in my arm?
Okay, because
briefly, because I know it's complicated.
Because it takes time, right? So it takes time for a body to develop. There's so many reasons. So first of all, use it in, like, let's say in this group here. I don't know how many people are on this group, but let's say we used a group of people and half of you did well with the vaccine and you developed antibodies and the other half didn't. Or maybe more of you developed antibodies and less of you didn't when I gave you the vaccine. It doesn't tell you, we don't know if that's due to chance. You have to study it in enough people in order to know statistically that it's not due to chance. So it has to be with a probability factor of less than 0.05. So we have to have enough people in the sample in order to say that something is true or not, right? So it's all about statistics. So some trials, like some clinical trials, there's only 300 patients in them. Some of them have thousands of patients, and it all depends on the disease and how you statistically have to power it to show a difference. And I know that's really hard to understand, but that's only part of it. The other part is that there's steps we usually go through in order to get something approved. And even though they're shortening that for some of the regulations, we still have to test this vaccine in healthy people first because we don't know the safety, right? So we're going to test it, and they already started. They've had healthy people have volunteered to have a little bit of COVID-19 in their system and develop antibodies and see what happens. So that takes time, and it takes a number of people in order to say that it's going to be safe, because first we have to right? So first we have to really test to see, is it safe? And then we have to see, is it effective? Who's it, who and who? So we have to say, are we going to get a group of people? I can't just throw everybody into a trial, right? Because you can't test me and Daniel. We're not the same. He's young and healthy and whatever, and I'm postmenopausal and whatever, so you have to get a matched group of patients, right? You have to get a matched group of patients and test it sort of the same way in both, in all the patient populations, and then come out with a vaccine. And they usually do kids totally separate. So they'll have a totally different thing for kids. It'll be a totally different drug trial.
Well, with other drugs and dosages are two other variables in the whole process. Right?
Not usually with vaccines. Vaccines, we don't worry so much about drug interactions because it's an injection. It's only when you do, most of the time it's oral, that you worry about oral drugs with drug interactions. Yeah, but even that, you got to test. People think that it should be overnight, and it's just not. The only thing we can do is we can test these really sick people. We can give drugs that are already on the market for other stuff to sick people. And that will come out first. We will probably get either the rheumatoid arthritis, one of the rheumatoid arthritis drugs, or one of the AIDS, the HIV antiviral drugs. Those will be the first ones to be a treatment, and that'll have to hold us over until we get a vaccine. We will get a treatment before we get a vaccine.
Is that what they mean when they call it compassion testing? Is that what this is?
Yeah, that's compassionate use, and that relaxes a lot of the regulations when you do compassionate use. Yeah.
Michelle, did you have a question?
Well, actually, it's Brian. I'm Michelle's husband. But I've heard that different blood types react differently to the virus. Do you have any evidence on that?
I really don't know the evidence on that, but I wouldn't be surprised. And again, see, that's all these things we just don't know. We really don't know. But that's easy to figure out. And that's one of the things they'll probably be testing. And so if you're going to do a drug trial, you're going to have to randomize people according to blood type. So you'll have to have just as many people matched in each group that have different blood types. So that, I mean, because if you just randomly put everybody that's O positive in one of the drug treatment arms and you get a great result, that only tells you one thing, right? So you'll be kind of compromising the study. So it's got to be, there's all these computer programs that help you do the randomization and stuff. Yeah. So good question. Mm-hmm.
Catherine asked in the chat, once the rate of transmission goes down, once we get back to living normally, won't the rate of the virus go up again? But we need to social distance until we have a vaccination.
Yeah, I mean, we probably will have to do a lot of that, but hopefully not a vaccination. We'll have treatment before we'll have a vaccination, and we will have to be careful. Hopefully we'll have testing though, that will be so available, right? And as long as we can get tested, that's like the ticket too. And maybe if you've had it already, we don't even know that. We don't even know if having it already, it might give you immunity. We don't know how long it'll give you immunity for, right? So that's another question. But yeah, we probably do have to continue to be more careful. The world is going to change a little bit. So.
Who else has a question?
I had a question about the incubation period. So I've read that it's anywhere from 4 to 14 days. Is there a reason for that, or what's the case with that?
Yeah, I mean, all we know is the people that have gotten it, and they're just looking at, reports from what people, have gotten. They don't have a reason biologically or molecularly why that is the case. We just know the average, and we know what the outliers are. So I think the average is 5 days, and we know there were people that showed symptoms after a couple days when they figure, hey, I was exposed 2 days ago and now I'm already, and then we know 12 days is the outlier. So no one has actually gone out to 14 days as of yet. It's only been 12 days, but they do the 14 in order to just be safe. And that's not because we know anything biologically about it or what. We just know from reports, from people that that have had it. So so there is something strange about it that it does it differently in people. So it could be your health status. It could be, how virulent it was when maybe it wasn't as virulent when you caught it. Maybe the virus, you caught it from something you were exposed to that it had already come down. I mean, we don't know. We just don't know yet. Yeah, but it does have a varying incubation period. Mm-hmm.
Tammy, did you have another question? You're on mute.
No, I don't have another question.
I think Tammy has a question though.
I have a question.
Okay.
What is the effectiveness of Lysol, like the spray?
I don't know. That's a good question. I would have to see what the alcohol content is. If it's just a bactericidal, then it's not going to work. If it has the point of alcohol, that alcohol to destroy that lipid layer, right? The antibacterial stuff is just if it's got any kind of antibacterial only, and alcohol under 62%, I think it is 60, it's not going to destroy the lipid bilayer. So we have to read the label. see what it
I
says.
tried to take Bravo apart in the rain. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Was that Cheryl? Okay.
Yeah, that was me.
Tammy.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. My kids, when they were younger, had adenovirus, and it seems like a similar condition in which it attacked the mucosal area. And the doctor was very encouraging, just said, you just got to wait till it runs its course. And I know that a lot of people are just having to wait till it runs its course, but I've seen that there are therapies that can be done for people who actually are ill with coronavirus, where they do heat or hot things to help loosen the mucus, and they do physiotherapy compressions on the back. What are your thoughts on those types of things as management during the illness?
It's any kind of supportive care. That's all we're doing right now, right? Unless you're in a clinical trial. So all of those things are gonna make you better and treat your symptoms. And that's all we can do. Yeah. So, and I mean, we've heard reports of people getting the chills. You get a really, really violent chill sometimes, and fevers, really, really high fevers. And so anything that you can do to just alleviate symptoms. Yeah.
Would Mucinex be a good choice at this point?
I don't know. I'm not sure how Mucinex and the virus react. It makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, but I'm not sure if we even know that.
I mean,
I don't think it can hurt.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
Some of the research I've tried to do about controlling or managing the illness indicates healthy doses of vitamin C, vitamin D, your typical antiviral vitamins, but also zinc, how zinc supports the lung tissue and creates a better optimum for ridding oneself of the virus or responding better to a respirator if that's down the road for someone. What are your thoughts on those items?
I don't know about zinc per se, and the lung tissue. I'd have to look that up. But I do know that having a better immune system does help you with this. We see that, right? You see the people that are compromised or older. So as you get older, your immune system gets not as good on average. I mean, you're going to have young people that don't have an immune system, right? So, but and if you're an adult who's really careful and eats right and has, and takes vitamin C and does a really good job of trying to stay healthy, you're going to have a stronger immune system. So anything you can do to boost your immune system right now is critical. It's really critical, because I want a better immune system than I should for my age. So, yeah. And if you're young and you're not getting your sleep even, and you're not being smart about your health and everything, your immune system is going to go down, and you'll be susceptible.
And Michael talked to me earlier in the week about next week's discussions you guys are going to have over this next week, a time next week you're going to talk. And one of the things on his list is products that can help boost your immune system. And I know Lynn and I take a few products that really are integral in our regimen towards boosting our immune system. And I know Michael will talk to you about that too.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So next week we're talking about the importance of supplementation. So we're going to be introducing you to some of the supplements that the Jeunesse product line offers. Does anybody else have any other questions for Linda? This has been a discussion.
Good. I hope so. Hope I didn't bore you all with all of that. So anyway.
How can my bride possibly bore you?
We're working from home now, and Mike listens to me talk, and today he mistakenly used the name of one of our drugs that we're working on for, what was it, instead of
our dog's heartworm medicine.
He's like, I gotta get Jackson's.
I gotta get Jackson's and Trovaptin. Wait a minute, trifexas.
It's so funny. So he's been hearing like a lot of my stuff.
The social distancing that Linda and I are used to is she travels like 75% of the time.
Yeah.
And so her idea of social distancing is to find a remote portion of the world, which would clearly be in her territory, and buy a one-way ticket there. And so she's thinking that 6 feet's way too close, so 1,000 miles would be way better. And she's scouting the airlines to find tickets somewhere.
Stop it. Anyway, well, thanks you guys for listening, and I really, I'm glad to have been able to share that with you. So.
Well, Linda, thank you so much for taking time out of your evening to join us. We really appreciate you sharing your knowledge and expertise with us. And thank you everyone for joining us for the virtual happy hour. We were planning to play a game and give out prizes, but what we're going to do is we're going to save that for next week. And we'll just play games during our virtual happy hour for the entire hour. I know, Chris, disappointing, but
we got virtual Pictionary going with our family here in just like 30 minutes. So, you know.
Thank you so much for joining.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks. Good night.
Good night. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.
See y'all.
Oh,